Hey, how you doing? Alrighty. Uh, White is Hold on, let me get this. Okay. Simon Williams is white, and his opponent, Mike Herbert, is black. Herbin. Simon did lose this, so we're still. We're just looking at it from Simon's side of the board. So let's see how it looks. Oh wow, we're doing really good there. Okay. So White played d4, d4, d6, knight f3, f5, which is kind of dubious, g3, knight f6, bishop g2, and then bishop e7, castles and castles. So Simon is basically going for an attack. He's getting ready to set up for an attack. c4, d6. This is the Leningrad, Stonewall Leningrad setup. Knight c3, knight e4, e takes c4, f takes c4. So now this knight is putting a question to it. Knight d2 and then d5. And if pawn was to take, then what would happen is this would reset up better the pawn structure. And I'd prefer Simon. He played f6 here. He played knight c6. He took. I don't know if I'm thinking that potentially pawn takes might have actually slightly been better here than a pawn takes. Then f c5, and if takes, takes, and if takes, then takes. You have check, and the king moves. You're going to be playing around an isolated pawn, so you have knight, and then just got to be careful here. So c6, pawn takes, rook takes, queen takes, c takes d. Rather than the other way. Bishop d. Bishop f4, f2, b5 to hold the pawn, and prepare for the knight infiltration, or bishop infiltration. e5, rook takes e5, rook b8, knight d2, and then bishop to e8. And I like this move at this moment. It's really strong. I think that Simon Williams is doing really good here, because what he's going to have is a type of French, but with the bishop outside the pawn chain. He played knight b4, which was a mistake here. Queen d7 is a good move. I like queen d7. Then b3. Now he gets to undermine the pawn. Knight took there. A4. Knight C5, which is actually a dubious move. He should have answered that with bishop G6, and at this point I believe this is winning. If he plays knight here, you have bishop takes, and if knight takes, then you can play rook takes, and you're up a piece. So I can't believe he missed that move. On takes, knight takes, b6. It's kind of, you need to support this this pawn here, buttress it up, or as that's what they put like beams up when they do that. It's like a buttress is a really well supported thing, and this actually would have D5 is a mistake, dubious move. Knight C4. He played bishop D. He missed his opportunity. Queen C5. C takes D5. E takes D5. Rook C8. Attacking. I think he should have went for a draw here. What's his opponent's rating? Oh, okay. Simon's rating is lower. I mean higher. The only losing move. Wow. And then if he doubles up here, I think he could have held. So he walked into what we like to call a forcing line. To his bishop. And see what happens here is if he plays there, pawn takes check. If you move, then you walk into a mate. Let's do some puzzles now. I have to move mate 2. White to move mate 2. We'll give you one more minute to think about it, and then we'll work on it together, okay? Hey, how you doing? White to mate 2. How you doing, 360? Oh, nice. Was that on lachess.org? Or icchess.org? Wow. Congratulations. That is tough when you face like 2,000 or above, yeah. Yeah, I know how that is. It's not fun. But I mean, chess is fun, but I mean, it's kind of difficult. So look, I'm glad you did really good. Then that's pretty good for out of 20 players. That's good. So mate n2 for white. Actually, it's a straight. Think straight. Very straightforward, and don't overthink it. Do not overthink the. Yeah, it is hard when you get into time trouble, but that's where having a plan is huge. Yep, there you go. That's not over. That's perfect. You didn't overthink it. Yeah. Whatever you do, that's one thing I learned about puzzles. Don't overthink them. Don't overthink them. And forcing moves are there too, so don't overlook certain setups either. So inside of forcing moves, you may be able to find a win if if you don't overlook, like, sometimes what I'm learning from forcing moves in the book is try even the most outlandish move. Try even the most outlandish. Oops. Sorry about that. 1 second. Gotta move the queen. That was my bad. I'm sorry about that. I gotta move the queen down one more. There we go. Because they said some of the most beautiful moves are actually moves that are pretty impressive for sure. Think about this. Think simple, very straightforward. Don't complicate this one. Don't overthink it. Look at the two pieces that you have. Yes, they are. They're mate twos again. Yep. Well, the hint here is don't overthink this. The move is there. Don't overthink it. There you go. There you go. Kaboom. Nice job. See? Don't overthink it. I find that I miss so many puzzles when I overthink it. It's just the strangest thing. Our human mind wants to overthink all the time these moves, and it's like, for real? Why can't we just think the most straightforward ones? And that's what the forcing chess moves is teaching me, to think practical and kind of think outside the box. Because when you're able to think outside the box, you get to find those double exclam moves, those moves that players only dream to have played. Only dream. It's those games that you're so happy to show the next generation, that sacrifice, that queen sacrifice, that brings a tear to the eye of a chess player of joy when you get to do that. Actually, he's going to take the pawn. If you play queen e3, he'll play king takes h4. Yeah, uh, that's right. You got it. See, you didn't overlook it. You didn't overthink it. E5 is an exclam move. That is a great find there. That move actually wins. Because if he takes, then G5 is mate. If he pushes, G5 is mate. If he goes King F5, you have, let me see here. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe King, oh no, okay. King E5 actually is not, and that's the move that stops it. Okay, so King E5, so no go on that one. Well, this is a particular quagmire of a problem we're in, isn't it? Huh. I know what it is. Duh. Think simple. Think simple. What is the most simplest move? Well, think straightforward. Think simple. What can the queen do to the f6 pawn? Yep. That's actually the win. Because when he goes to h5, queen takes g5. Queen g5 is mate. Yeah, just think the most straightforward moves, and you'll get it. I'm learning from these puzzles that I overthink the position so much. I overthink it. It's actually there. We just overthink our puzzles way too complication. We make it too complicated. That's what I mean. Okay, rook here. On there, and then queen here, and king there. I believe that's right. Let me see. Yep. So just think the most practical chess moves, and for some reason it's there. The most practical moves. Let me make sure I have this exactly 100% right. Yep. Think the most practical. I'm hoping this seems too easy. This is it. Mate two. So I'm trying to see. Let me see if we push e5. I think e5 is mate though. No. Oh, he takes on e5. Okay, that's why e5 doesn't work. Okay, e5 doesn't work because he can take. Let's see here. Queen f5 check. King g7. Nothing there. Trying to see here. Let me see. Let's see. If Queen f5 check, King g7. No, there's not mate time. We don't have mate time. Let's see if we have Queen h5, King g7. Do you kind of have an idea? This is kind of a tough one. Yeah, this is a tough one here. Let's see if we play Queen h5, King g7, Queen takes, then he's got King h6, so that doesn't turn out to be anything that we would desire to come to pass. Queen g8, King e5, nothing. So I was looking at this. Surprisingly, we were looking at the same thing. Queen takes is mate. If King e5, then mate. Yeah, nice find there. Excellent work. I find myself overthinking these. I gotta stop that. Yeah, it is. It is pretty. It's not simple. It's straightforward. I just I don't want to minimize that these are hard, but I just find that I overthink them, and that's a problem I'm working on. So, because these are pretty, you know, you have to struggle with them to improve. Yeah. Ooh, wow. Interesting. Let's see here. Oh, this is an odd one. You're gonna think outside the box a little bit here. Think outside the box a tiny bit. Queen f5. Surprisingly, I was thinking knight takes check. Well, and then if king f7. Oh, okay, yeah, that blocks. Yeah, that makes sense. See, yeah, see, straightforward. There you go. I overthought it a little too bit much there. There you go. Nice job. Very, very much straightforward. You thought right to the point, and look, you solved it. Yeah. But think about it. You had to actually see it, so congrats on that. He's going to start adding more pieces now. This is going to be a little bit more challenging. These have more pieces to them now. So you're going to have to get a little bit more immune to more pieces. Or prepared, that's what I should say. This is gonna test us in our strength of visualization, which I actually like that he's adding more. In my opinion, I like that he adds more pieces. I think it makes it more real to life. That's just my opinion. Because then this actually puts us into a full-fledged scenario of mating in two. This is a mate in two. Oops, sorry about that. I have a pawn in the wrong spot. 1 second. 1 second. Give me a sec. There we go. That should be right. Let's see. Yep. Yep. That's right. Knight there. Yeah. Yeah. 3 pawns and 2. Perfect. Okay, mate. This is still mate in 2. Still mate in 2. Take and then. But do you see though? It's right there. That tells us right there. These forcing moves are staring you in the face. We did staring in our face, and we have to be able to spot like that was an excellent tactic there. Yeah. But wait till you see what he has for the next one. You're gonna be like, oh, you're gonna. This is pretty straightforward. The other one was like, whoa. Wait till you see. He's got tons and tons of pieces on the board here. So this is we're not out of the woods yet. Make sure I have this right. Yep. Got it. Yep. Mate and 2. Mate and 2. Yeah, this is a these are the forcing ones that I've been talking to you about. And there's a book called Forcing Chess Moves. Let me see here. What if he takes? Hold on. What if he doesn't take with the queen? So rook take. What if he doesn't take? Knight. Knight takes f6. You gotta always think about that. Check. Rook takes f6. And then what? So you have to always consider. Oh, it's pinned. You're right. So it's a pin. It's a pin. See that? That's right. So he has to take, and then now that, yep, there you go. See, there it is. There's the forcing move. It's a pin. Right there. The pin that wins. Alright. Onward and upward to the next one. I believe this is right. Let me, hold on. Nope, I have to change one thing. 1 second. Gotta remove the knight and put the queen there. There you go. White to move and mate. There's mate. And there's mate. believe this is right. Let me make sure. Yep, this is right. Think outside the box. You got it. One more, and then we start into our end game. I think this is right. Just give me a second. Uh-oh, hold on. I have black to move. Sorry about that. Just give me 1 second. 1 second to change that. So there. Yep. There. Yep. This is it. Okay. So rook e8, queen takes, then queen takes, d is mate. Yep. Rook e8, if bishop takes, then queen takes is nope. Queen takes isn't mate here. It's queen to g8. And that line, queen g8's mate. I guess queen g8 or queen f8 would work too. Nah, it's fine. You got it. There's 3 mates. Okay, let us move. Now that we have completed A level, we're going into we're going into expert. End games for experts. Right now is the section that we're in for Jeremy Silman. At this point, you know enough basics to change your general mode of study. Instead of looking at isolated positions, we will look at more complicated situations that are made easy by being firmly schooled into all the formations or foundation endgames, the foundational endgames. Here we will introduce the concept of solving complicated positions by beginning with a very simple idea, etc. Your previous knowledge that we've already acquired, and adding a bit more complications to it, and adding adding to it again. This is flow. This is called flow. Information is a necessity. A flow chart can be used to deconstruct a surprising amount of endgames. So a flow chart can, no matter how advanced they might appear to be at first glance. So we're going to be going into flow charts. A rook endgame, let me set up this here. I'll pull up a board editor. Rook endgames are a mystery to most players. The fact is that if you don't know the building blocks of a rook endgame, you won't be able to play any rook endgames properly. In other words, knowing is a must. Since you're reading this expert section, you should be well acquainted with the ins and outs of the basic rook endgame theory. This will allow you to understand the more complicated situations that will be addressed here, and also make the concepts of flowchart rather easy to grasp. A flowchart taking a simple position into deeper waters. We are now taking a leap into a flowchart mentality, a simple technique that will enable you to turn many complicated positions which at first glance will appear untangible basically, into simple situations that you will have already mastered. The flowchart mentality is in realism a form of transacting where you can take a game from one situation to another and perhaps to another yet. This can maneuver a complicated rook endgame into a basic one. You can actually look at it, flowchart it, and make it into a basic one in your mind. As well as rook endgames into basics, as well-known situations are, it can mean going from one specific kind of endgame to a completely different situation. For example, a rook and minor piece can turn into a favorable rook endgame if you exchange the minor pieces, and this can turn into a winning king and pawn endgame if you later exchange the rooks and let's start with the following confusing position. Here we go. A lot of wordage, I know. It's hard to go down the thing a little bit, but hey, we're gonna get it. Hey, you know what? One step at a time. That's what Yasser Seirawan said, Grandmaster. So if he said that, then you know what? It's the truth. It's the truth on our knowledge that we have to take this situation here and then simplify it down right here. It's black to move. Yeah. In this situation, I'm going to flip the board. It's black to move so that we can get a kind of better perspective. Does this remind you of anything? It's black to move. Does this remind you of anything that we've done before? First and foremost, a flowchart is nothing more than a way to use basic knowledge to solve positions that seem extremely complicated. So, if you were to look at this, what pieces would you want to trade off? Basically, a flowchart, you're taking the board, the endgame board, and you're saying, what does this similarly look like to me? I've studied from basically unrated up to over 2100 right now. We're in the 2100 section, I believe. Let me see. Yeah, 2000 to 2199. what does this position look like? If I trade off this rook for this rook, then I trade off this pawn for this pawn, what does that go into? Remember the pawns? Remember what we talked about? How this extra pawn right here will end up becoming a tempo that we need. So if we were able to trade off this rook for this rook, this pawn for that pawn, we would have a winning pawn in king endgame. So that's what he's talking about flow charting, is taking your knowledge and looking at it and making a chart, and then taking another concept off to the side of an endgame that you priorly know, and then working backwards to that endgame that you want. You already have it, working towards it, or you can work back the way you need to. Either way, reverse doesn't matter. But if we can get something like this, we're winning. So we have to, he'll show us how this works. And then we also could potentially, if we have this type of a setup too, you have to be careful that if we traded this pawn for this pawn, we have basically the idea of getting our king over here after our rook gets here and this pawn gets here. We'll maneuver our king over, give white this pawn, and then free up our rook, and we'll be able to have a potential rook Lucinda position. A rook Lucinda position with being able to cut the king off. We'll be able to get our rook over here, get our king here, and then we'll have a rook Lucinda and win. So that's kind of what he's saying. The average expert or master would take a guess, but would not be able to definitely figure out either of these positions. So we'll turn to them when you have the tools, basically, to the basic building blocks, of course. By this time you should have dozens of building block positions stored in your head, though you'll add a few more in the pages to come. So we have like rook Lucindas, we have Lucindas, we have certain queening. We have to have all this charted in our head so that when you look at an endgame position, you'll know which route you want to go down, which pieces you want to trade off. And that's how you win most endgames, is you're actually charting them. You're looking at it and saying, is this a possible route that I can go down? Is this a possible thing? Engines call them nodes. Humans call them charts. Okay, let me see here. So if we play here, and then let's say the rook plays here, we play here, if he takes and then we take, he does have a check here, so we got to be careful that we don't push our, as we say, our luck. And then if he just moves, this is actually surprisingly a draw. So if we played here and then takes, he's got a check, and he comes back. Oops. And he could actually potentially take here. So he can't. This is actually winning. Surprisingly, this is a winning endgame here. So this is winning. Okay, let's set up another position, and then we'll make a study based on it. Would you consider this a draw for white, or a make sure I spelled that right. Oops, flow charting. I have to not ing, just flow chart. There we go. Would you consider this a draw or a win for black? Before I make any moves, I want to throw this with the knowledge that you know from the end game that we've gone over. Is this a draw or a win? What is so looks drawish. So chess 360. Are you gonna be saying that it's a draw then for black? Yeah, there's a 50-50 choice. You looked at it from what we've went over in our end game and all this stuff and all of our knowledge. Is it a draw or a win? So play the grubs going for a win. What's your decision, chess 360? Win. Okay. So we have two wins. Actually, two. Dude, what about you? What about you, chess? Yeah. Okay. So we have one draw and two wins. Let's see who's right here. With the knowledge that we've acquired, we'll see who has the end game, some end game experience, and what if it's right or if you're wrong. We'll find out. Is two wins or is it a draw? Let's see. King h2, h3, rook a8. King takes is actually losing here because of check. That's the losing move. And then we queen, and we actually get a winning rook endgame. So he can't take. If you're wondering Why in the world did he not take? That's the reason. King f5, rook a7, king a4, rook a8, okay, so there, okay, rook d3, king c2, okay, and then king b3, rook check, king c3, king a8. So, in your opinion, yep, there you go. That's it. You got it. That's right, it was a draw. Congratulations on choosing the draw. Well, congratulations 360. It is a draw. You have chosen wisely. You have used your endgame understanding to have charted it out and have noticed the patterns, the flowchart patterns of this endgame, that there's no way for black to win. Yeah. Yep. You got it. That's right. Or if the rook was on, if white's rook was on a1 and black's rook was on a8, it'd be a win as well. So congratulations on finding that. That is considered rook Lucinda position for, I mean, not a rook Lucinda position, but you're right. This would be, if it was the pawn were here, yeah. Okay. It's going to say a draw because this is a draw. There's no way to make progress here. We'll still take a look. So they just check. And you can just play here. And now it goes towards a draw. There's still no way for him to actually win here. Even though it says 2 pawns, it's still a draw. There's no way for black to actually win. And the computer's actually finally catching up. Then it's a plain draw. It's a plain old draw. Yeah. It's a plain draw. The computer looks at, all it does is crunch numbers, and what it sees is that you're 2 pawns up. And so in its mind, it says 3. You're 3.4 pawns up. You would think, if you didn't know your endgame, that black's winning and black should resign. I mean, white should resign here. But in reality, black is the one who's going to draw the game. It's going to be a drawn game. But it took the engine almost 22 plus moves, 20 plus moves to actually figure out that it's going to be a draw. So that's why some of the Super Grandmasters use engines, and they'll take a position that looks like it's a -3 for black, but in reality it's a draw, and they'll actually chart it out like what we're talking about here, like flow chart it out. And that's how they kind of get chunks of knowledge. They call it chunks too, chunks of understanding. There's 4 chunks in chess. There's these chunks here. They call them 4 sectors. These are actually chunks. Oh, there is? Okay. These are certain chunks, and you can actually take them, and you can do chunk learning on these areas here, 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 and here. And he'll talk about that. And this is it. We're going to go over one more. We're going to go over a couple more because we got plenty of time now to actually go over some of these. I'm gonna throw this again into your hands, my friends, my chess cruncher friends. Is this a draw, or is this a win for black? Is this a draw, or is this a win? With the knowledge that you have on board of our endgame studies. Well, I'll give you a second to look at it and see what you've decided, if it's a draw or a win for black. Be right back. So one win, one draw. Okay. Let us go down the line to see. G4, pawn G4. King, Rook D8, Rook A8, G3. F5, 8, 4, A7, and it's a draw. Doesn't that waste the tempo? Not really. It doesn't much matter. There's no way for us to dislodge this king. So all black does is lock down the king to the defense of this pawn, and he tries like he can to make a mad dash to change places with rook, but this rook doesn't let him have time at all. And the reason also Jeremy Silman did this too. Yeah, well, we'll look at that in just a second. So this is what he says about this puzzle here. The king and rook draw versus king and rook pawn on the 7th. This is a rook trapped in front of the G actually our king trapped in front of the G pawn. Sorry. Now we're going to do one more here, and it's going to look very familiar to the same one that we did before. Very familiar. But in this line, I'm going to have to make it a study. 1 second. I'm going to flip the board so that we can see it better. So in this line, I'm going to throw it again into your hands. So we found out both of them were draws. So the prior ones, is this a draw or is this a win? It's up to you to choose wisely. Choose wisely. A win or a draw in this one. F4, Rook A8. He says that checking A6 doesn't accomplish anything, and just he marches towards the rook like King F7, Rook A8, King E6, Rook there, check, King D7. And checks are history, and all the checks are history. And surprisingly, this move here gets an exclam mark. Congratulations, Chess360, for choosing correct. Yeah. This is actually a win here. And the reason is if king goes to f2, what is the move that wins here? Hey, how you doing, Lord's Courage? What is the win here? Yeah, so don't worry about it. You know what? I have I got to post. I've been kind of bad about not posting on YouTube. I'm gonna have to do that. I'll post our previous podcasts, our streams. Rook F1. Are you sure about that? Think of the end game. Think end game and think of some of the lessons that we have learned further back. What is actually the best move here? This is a trick. Yep, exactly right. You got it. You got it 110% there. If he takes here, you you actually skewer the rook and you end up winning. That's the difference between a pawn being on g3 and a pawn being on h3. This pulls the king to the most vital square, most weak square that he doesn't want to be on, which is f3. Because then we have the skewer trick of king h2. Yep. So, and then if we play here, if he takes, let's just say he takes, you can right here actually turn into a queen. When he takes here, then you take and you get the same result. So either way, you get the same result. Now we're going to be doing another one. Hey, how you doing? All right, let's do some more. Oops. Let's see. It's this here, I believe. Let me see. F. There we go. Right here. I want to actually propose this one to my chess friends right here. It doesn't have any notations that go with it, but I want to see what you think about. Is this a draw for black or a win? Well, I was asking, is it a win or a draw? From what we priorly have went over, would this be considered a win or a draw? Let me take the pawn off the board. Would this be a draw? Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Ow, my bad. I'm sorry. You're right. You guys are right. That's a win. You guys are right. Sorry. I had the king in the wrong spot. That's my fault. You're right. Yeah. That is a win. That is a win because of rook g1. Yep. I had the king in the wrong spot. uh, Mouse slips are a pain in the drain sometimes. That's why you always got to have a plan, even on online games, so that you're not thinking while you're dragging your pieces. You have a plan and you just go with it. Is this a win or a draw here? What do you think, 360? Is it a draw or a win? With the charting knowledge that we just have learned, is this a draw or a win? There you go. And you both are right. The funny thing is, if you take this pawn off the board, it's still a draw. So many chess players in endgames would consider this a win just because white has a pawn. Black can't make any progress. It's the same exact situation. What Black's going to try to do is get over to b3, and every time he does that, white's just going to check him away. So so that in this one it's a pure draw here, and you're right. Yeah. Now we're going to do this one over here. We're going to have a king up here. So this is the one we're going to be working on. All right. Let us do it. I'll see if I can make a study out of this, so then oops, I gotta make it black to move. I'll see if this can turn into a study. Ah, great. Saves me a lot of having to go back and forth and doing all that. And with the knowledge that you have on board, is this a draw or a win? You got it. You guys have it. Great work. Because the idea is to get a king over to b7 and dislodge this rook, like what we talked about. Once the rook dislodges, we can now come over and come down here, and then we're actually winning now. With proper play, he said that this is actually a win. King h2, because we can't, remember, if he goes to f3 or f2, it's game set match for white. So white has to go back and forth forever. He can't even come up to f3, because if he comes up to f3, rook f1, check is played, and then we can actually queen and win the rook. And this time we have a pawn that we can get our king involved and actually potentially win. So he has to stay passive. King b7, rook a3, king b6. Now we're coming down the board. We're saying, hello, Mr. Rook. We're going to say hi again. King g2, king b5. Hello, we're coming closer. Come on, stay right there. And the rook's like, yeah, right, I'm not falling for that trick. That's not going to be the end of my show. king b4, rook a7, king c3, rook a5, king d3, and the funny thing is white has no fear of black actually taking here. I'll show you. He actually has to play rook a8 and then king e4 is an exclam. He actually has no fear of this move when he goes king d3. Excuse me. He has no fear of that move because then rook b1 gets played here at this point. Yeah. So that even if he comes back here, we can queen and then he has to take. Rook takes. And then what we can actually do at this point is if he tries to go up the board, we can actually cut the king off. Let me see here. I think we can get our king here. If he tries pushing, we actually can then cut it off via this way. There's no way to stop it at that point. So he actually resigns here. But actually, no, I'm sorry, not resigns. There's some more moves. King e3 is a playable move here. Rook a4 and then the position, this is the position that he was talking about right here. Black can't force white to move basically here, and the position that was reached is a plain draw here, because if he comes back here, king h2, and then if king e2, threatening to play king f2, we just go king g2 and then king e3, reaching the diagram position here. Now this is now we're going to the game. This is actually the game. Check. King e3. Now he's in Zugzwangp at this point. White is forced to drop the pawn or move the king to a poor square. King h2, and then king f3, and he's basically getting himself checkmated. He has to actually check here at this point. At this point, he has to check, and when he checks, we get our king in front. So that white actually threw in the towel at this point and just gave up, because the best move sequence would actually be like a check and then here and then trying to get back there. And at this point, now that this pawn is free to roam, we just move the king over and we go bump bump, and then when the king comes here, we do our little trick again and we got it. And so, okay, these six building block positions should give you enough flowchart knowledge to make solving our original two positions possible. So let's take another look. Now he's gonna take a look. Let's see here. at this position, at this position. So let's pull up a board editor, and we're going to set up this one again. Now that you have the knowledge on board that oops, right here, and then right there, king has a pawn here. Can black win this, or is it a draw? What do you think, Play the Grub? Do you think this is a win or a draw? So we got one win. What do you think, Play the Grub? Are you going win or draw? You got it right. Nice job. Because if we're able to trade off this for this, and then we get our rook here, our pawn, oops, our pawn here, and our rook here, and then we get our king to the optimum spot, and we walk this down here, and we attack the king, then we have our little threat. This position, though, seems very winnable because we can see a clear light at the end of the tunnel. Using our building block 4 as our guidepost, we know that the a2 pawn then would freeze the king, then exchange the f for the g3, and would be game over. Furthermore, building block 6 shows us that we would win this position even if we got a pawn to a4 and dragged the f4 pawn all the way, dragged the f pawn all the way to f4. Once we have a goal position in mind, coming up with the actual moves that allow us to reach our dream position is rather easy. So first move is oops, sorry, I have to make this into a study. I forgot about that. And then this is our last one. Then we enter a whole nother, a whole different one. So then we'll probably save that one for tomorrow. Tomorrow is only a day away. Oh, sorry, I couldn't help that. Black, because I love doing endgames. They're so fun. Endgames are so fun. Black immediately rushes his pawn to a2, knowing that this will lead White's king basically stuck on h2 and g2. So king f2, rook a1, king f3, a3, king g2. Black has to be careful not white has to be careful not to play a4 because this actually loses on the spot. This is a double question mark. What would you say the winning move here for black is, my friends? What is the winning move here for black from a flow chart that we've endgame flow chart that we looked at? Okay, a3, a2. What if he tries to go to f3? What do you play now? King f3. Rook f1. And you were right, and you win the game. That's why he has to go back to g2. Yep. Then a2, we've acquired goal number 1. Get our rook to a1. Get our pawn to a2, which now ties the king down to h2 and g2. Black's first goal is accomplished. White's king is now tied to h2 and g2. That's what we just talked about. And I didn't even look at the book. If you are not completely familiar with this, the material in part 6 should refresh your memory. So if we ever had to, we can go back and refresh our memory. But we don't need to because we got the flowcharts in our mind, in our brain. King h2. We play f4. Exclam. King takes. Pawn takes. And now what do we play here that wins? What do we play here that wins? What's the winning exclam move from our knowledge? And you are right. Great job on that. Okay, this way it says, and we've reached our building block 6, which we should know now is a basic win for black. And we'll look at more complicated positions in part 7, where flowcharts prove useful. But all of them are only comprehensive if we retain the lessons learned from 1 through learned in the first 6 parts of this book. So these patterns, are these flowcharts, as Jeremy Silman calls them, only apply when if we've studied from chapter 1 all the way to chapter 6. We're in chapter 7 now. So if you've missed any of Chess Cruncher TV, I didn't go all the way back to number 1, so I'll have to do a study on the basics. But the basics are like queen and bishop. 2 bishops, checkmate. Queen and rook, checkmate. Rook and rook, checkmate. Queen and queen, checkmate. And then mating with a rook and a king, and mating with a queen and a king. So those are some of the basic ones that we talked about. Then we talked, let me just go through really quick and take a look. We talked about bishops of the opposite color. If the queen square is the opposite color of the bishop, and you're able to, and it's a rook pawn, you can draw a game that way. And if you're in front of the king, in front of the pawn, 2 squares, and you're the one that has the pawn, you're going to win. But if your opponent gets the opposition, what's the book name? The book name is Jeremy Silman Teaches not Jeremy Silman, sorry. It's Jeremy Silman's complete endgame course from beginner to master. It's so worth it. And then there's endgame parts that he talks about, and like distance opposition is one that we learned, and then we learned. I'll set up one that's really interesting here. I'll just set it up, and we're not going to make it a study. We're just going to set it up, and I'll have white be the one to. Let's get this one right here. I'll even have black to move. We're not making it a study. We're just going to go over a little bit of our endgame understanding here, because we need to do a quick refresher. That's really good. You should go over it. Okay. In this position, is this a draw or a win for white? If it's black to move, is it a draw or a win? If it's black to move. We're just doing a quick refresher, because we got to refresh just a little bit of our pawn endgames, because this is gonna arise in a lot of the chapter 7. See, I've done this book, the book before. It's so good. Yep. And I'll show you. You're exactly right. Yeah, black to move. It's I think it's a win even if it's white to move. I think it's still a win. Let me make it white to move, and I'll show you that it's. I believe it's still a win. Even if it's white, I believe. Let me see. It's been a while. I believe it is. Yeah. So if we play here, let's say he plays here, we play there, he plays here, here, back. Oops. We have the one tempo we need. And there you go, and you win. It's all based on opposition. This one pawn here gave us the opposition to win. The second e pawn gave us the opposition to win. Now this one I'm gonna set up another one. This is kind of gonna be a silly one. Is this a draw or a win? No, yeah, whoever turn it is. If it's black to move, draw. Okay. We're gonna set up another problem. Oops, I'm gonna have black. Is this a win or a draw for white? Are you sure about that? It's white to move. Okay, let's see how we can win this. then he comes in front. Sorry, I gotta promote this to the main line. Gotta get rid of the D one. And then here. Then now you move the king. If he comes up, you pin. If he comes there, you check. If he comes up here, you come here. If he comes there, then he walks in front, you move the king in. If he comes up, you pin. If he comes down, you check. If he comes over, actually, if he comes over, he would lose. So if he comes up here, you come here, here, there, and he walks in front. You bring the king in one more step further. And then if he comes down here, check. If he comes up, here, there, check, front, king comes. Now you lose. So you'd have to be really careful here. If he comes here, you have to be careful that now he's going to have to move here, and then you checkmate. So you're right, you do win. And we learned about that from Jeremy Silman. Yeah, King E3 would be interesting. Then now I'm going to throw a little change in the works. Oops. Is this a win or oops, sorry, wrong spot for the king, my bad. Hold on. We can't have him in check. I'll have him move over here. There we go. Is this a it's black to move, sorry. Have the wrong person moving. My bad. Okay, is this a draw or a win? With your endgame understanding. And then we'll stop here at this point, and then we'll pick up tomorrow, because we're just doing a refresher. So what would you say, Play the Grub and Chess 360? A win or a draw? A win or a draw? Choose wisely. We'll give you one more minute to choose before we actually see if it's a win or a draw. Are you sure it's a draw? Yeah, there we go. You got it right, it's a draw. So if we played here, we could actually play we could play King H1. And at this point, if he takes it, it's a draw. There's no way to make any progress if you check. The king comes up. Yeah, if you come here, you can actually come in front, and even if he comes there, actually you don't want to come in front. You could if you wanted to. You could come there, and then if he comes here, you come there, and then if he comes here, you can actually come there, and there's no way to play. What about Queen B7 check? That is weird. Let me see here. You're saying queen b7. You just move your king to g1. You move your king to g1. Okay, king g1. And then if you tried checking here, he just actually queens, so that wouldn't work. So king g1. If you checked here, the king would go to h1. And if you try checking here, king goes to g1. If you try checking there, h1. Then you come in front, and when it goes there, you come up. You can actually come up here, and if he plays there, here, he comes in front. Yeah, but then you can stay right there. Not surprisingly, it looks losing, but it's actually not losing. It's a plain old draw. He can't make any progress if you stay in the corner every time he does that. What does the engine say? A draw. It's a draw. So, do you have any questions? I think we covered a lot of our information, and we're going to be starting next time rook and 2 connected passed pawns versus rook and one pawn. I think we did a lot of our main endgame understanding. We did opposition. Yeah, I think we did. We already know about. So you know about this here. We're gonna try one. I'll try one more thing. White to move. Yeah, this is if white is to play a4, is that the best move or is that a mistake? Is a4 a mistake or the best move? Because we're learning about the deep freeze. Do you remember the deep freeze that Jeremy Silman talked about in his endgame course? And then we'll call it on this. Yeah, the deep freeze is actually a5 here. Because what happens is one pawn stops 2 pawns, and that's what he calls it, a deep freeze. So the best move is actually b4. Yep, there you go. You got it. So you got it. You got the main. You basically have all the understanding down that you'll need to enter into Chapter 7. I just wanted to give a refresher so tomorrow when we enter fully into Chapter 7 that we'll be ready right as rain and have our refresher. Okay. Any questions before I log off? You'll be ready tomorrow? All right. Wait a second. I think I promised. I promised. I played the grub that I would take a look at this one thing really fast. Yeah, I promised you. How do you prepare before games? Um, well, what I like to do is do some chess puzzles, and then if I'm kind of working on an opening, the day of. Well, I usually I look at some chess puzzles. Yeah, basically what Chess 360 says. Oh, interesting. Okay. Then I think we'll call it on this. We did take this. They said Stockfish can't really solve this, so I'll uh, I'll post it if you wanted to go over it again. If you wanted to go over this, you could. It was proposed by Play the Grub, and it's a chess problem. And so if you wanted to go over it, you can. So perfect. All right. I wanted to thank you all for logging on and participating. You know what? We're starting our long journey with our very first step of walking into chapter 9. I'm not 9, sorry. We're there. That'd be a really accomplishment if we got there that fast. But we are getting there. We're in chapter 7, and we're going to we're gonna go through that really quick because of how much understanding we have from chapter 1 all the way to chapter 6. Chapter 7 is the culmination of all of the 6 chapters combined, and then they take it to the next, as they say, pinnacle or plateau that Bruce Lee talked about. So you know what? We're taking our first step. We're on our long journey, like Yasser Seirawan said. You know what? We got to put on our glasses of calculation, and we're doing that. We're doing great. And we have to remember what Bruce Lee said, that knowing is not enough, you must apply. And willing is not enough, you must do. And we don't fear the person who has practiced 10,000 individual maybe openings or middle games. We actually are concerned about the chess player who knows their end game, because that's what Bruce Lee says. He feared the person who practiced 10,000 single one kick 10,000 times, not a multitude of kicks, but one kick 10,000 times. He also said there are no there are no limits to the human potential, but there are plateaus, and we must not stay there. We must go beyond the plateau that we're at. And what we think about is very vital, because you know what, we have to treasure our victories and learn from our losses. And remember that mistakes do not define us. It's how we handle the mistakes that define us. And like what we say from Chess Cruncher, nah, don't give up. Just knuckle down and get up. And as always, what we have to keep in mind too, that talent will be defeated and hard work will defeat talent because of one thing: talent won't work. That's the sad thing. If you're a talented chess player, if you put some work to it, can you imagine? You'd be like a car with turbos, with a nitro switch. You click it, and your car goes whoom. But people individuals that that have to work hard, that aren't talented in chess, will outwork a talented player, because a talented player, it comes to them so naturally that they take it for granted that the gift the Lord Jesus gave them of chess. But the person who works really hard doesn't take for granted that. They may not be the gifted chess player, but they'll outwork the talented chess player. And remember, like when I talk about, you can only spend a second one time. Where are you going to spend it? If you want to improve at chess, you have to spend that 1 second in chess. If you want a title, like to be a title player, and get those NMs, IMs, FMs, all those titles. You got to put in time. It's not easy to get, but it's so worth it when you do get it. And you have to strive for greatness, never ceasing to be. You could be happy, but never satisfied. You could be happy with a victory, but don't be satisfied, because you have many more games to come before you get your title, are your norms that apply to your titles. So, but you know what we always do when most are playing and we're studying and we're weeding our garden and we're keeping it so when our harvest happens, it's going to be a bumper crop. They come over and they say, "What you doing?" Well, like Tigger, they ask, "What's a Tigger?" and Pooh, they ask, "What are you doing?" Well, what we're doing is this: we hang up our coat because we're a chest cruncher. We hang up our hat. We sit down and study when most won't. A chest cruncher does, and that makes all the difference. And as Leslie So says, through the Lord Jesus, and as I say, God bless. And I'll see you next time on Chest Cruncher TV. Have a blessed morning, afternoon, evening, and Lord willing, I'll be back on tomorrow. And we'll push forward and keep going in our Jeremy Stillman Endgames course and some of our puzzles. And I'll try to get some more games to go over that are good, that like are in the French defense. So great job. Go Team Chest Cruncher. Hoorah. Be blessed. And I'll see you tomorrow. So great job. And keep studying your end game. And as always, honoring the Lord and having fun. Bye bye. Be blessed. And I'll see you tomorrow.